Well, if you live in Minneapolis and probably anywhere in Hennepin County, you've seen these big scary looking headlines about the massive property tax increase Hennepin County levied. But is that representative of what's going to happen to you? Are your property taxes going up that much? Today, we're going to take apart this headline and give you the tools to understand property taxes in Minnesota so you can skip the clickbait and get the facts. Okay, so I have a ton of information for you. Here's what's coming up in this video. We are going to chop apart this headline so you can decide if it's as scary as it seems or maybe if there's a bit more to the story. We're going to talk about a property tax bill in the state of Minnesota, the things that come together to bring you that property tax bill. If you have a better understanding of something, you're in a better position to challenge it down the road. And last but not least, we're going to talk a little bit about Hennepin County, Minneapolis, where we kind of sit, what this headline means, and what we can expect here in Minneapolis from a tax perspective kind of over the next 3 to 5 years. My name is Chris. I'm a real estate agent extraordinaire. My contact information is all right here. It's also below. If you're thinking about making a move, have questions on Minneapolis property taxes, drop me a line. I would love to hear from you guys. And right now, we're going to start off by getting into this headline and talking about what are the components that make up a property tax bill here in the great state of Minnesota. Before we get into this tax situation too much, the first thing I'm going to do is just break down what makes up your property tax bill, because I can tell you, as someone who has sold a lot of homes, I still run across a lot of property owners who are not sure how we get to this number. So let's talk about that real quick. In Minnesota, there are 4 main buckets you need to understand that are going to influence your property tax. So I'm going to break them down here real quick so you have a clear understanding. Number 1 is going to be the county levy, and that's what got the headline, right? Was the big 7.8% Hennepin County levy. The Hennepin County levy covers things like the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, county roads, county courts, public defenders, human services, social programs, county-wide infrastructure, elections, libraries, things like that. That is going to be layer number 1 to your Minnesota property tax. Layer number 2 is going to be similar, but it's going to be that levy at the city level. This is the tax collected by your local city. It's going to pay things like police, fire, public works, parks and recreation, road maintenance, city administration, operations, things of that nature. And each city usually sets its own tax levy. Key thing to understand, that is separate from the county tax levy, okay? That's layer number 2. Layer 3, the school district tax levy, and believe it or not, this one is often usually the largest single portion of your tax bill. It includes things like, not shockingly, related to schools like operating levies, capital levies, voter-approved referendums, and debt service on past construction. Because Minnesota ties school funding very heavily to property taxes, this category hits homeowners the hardest, especially in some of these higher performing school districts like Minnetonka, Eden Prairie, Wayzata. Just something to be aware of. That's layer 3. Layer 4, our fourth and final layer. Special assessments, I think that's pretty straightforward. That is the only part of your bill that is not automatically recurring, so we all like not automatically recurring bills, right? Special assessments, I think you guys probably know what they are, just what they sound like: street reconstruction, sidewalks improvements, storm drainage, street lights, retaining walls, things like that. So those 4 things are the pieces that make up your tax bill. Now I'm going to tell you just how each one of these things will actually influence now that we know what the components are. Well, let's just say your home in value goes up by 15%, but the county-wide average is only 5%. Guess what? Your share increases even if that town's levy did not increase at all. The thing to understand in Minnesota, taxes are relative, not absolute. You pay based on your slice of the total tax base. Number 2 is how your value changed compared to other homeowners. This part shocks most people. So if your neighborhood appreciates faster than others, your taxes go up, even if your city keeps taxes flat. If your area appreciates slower than average, your taxes may go up less than others or even go down slightly. The thing to understand is it's all proportional. Number 3, this is going to be the commercial versus residential tax shift, and Minnesota's got a bump on the nose here. Commercial property values in Minneapolis have frankly fallen hard since 2020 due to a number of reasons. We're going to come back and talk about this, but remote work, like a lot of places, remote work has reduced demand for commercial properties. Office vacancies have surged, see previous comment, which means downtown buildings have lost value, hospitality and retail have struggled, insurance and security costs have spiked, and then these commercial buildings lose value. What that means is their share of the tax burden shrinks, and in turn, that shifts some of that burden towards the homeowners. This is one of the biggest reasons residential taxes are rising. Fourth thing affecting your slice of the pie is going to be the state mandates, school formula, and local budget pressures. These influence your bill indirectly through city and school. These include things like police and fire payroll, teacher permits, contracts, healthcare premiums, insurance, infrastructure, aging, pensions, obligations, and so forth. You don't have to vote on these things. They are required spending. We've got one more thing to clarify and that is effective property tax rate. And once you understand this number, you will instantly understand why your bill may go up more or less than your neighbors, even if you live in the same city. So here's a pretty simple version. Your effective tax rate is just the percentage of your home's value that you actually pay in property taxes each year. For example, in Minneapolis, the effective property tax rate is about 1.3% in real dollars. And I'm going to tell you right now exactly how to calculate. For my Hennepin County friends, and my out-of-state friends, and those not in Hennepin County, the numbers are exactly the same, and your county should have a very similar website, so hang with me here for a moment. Hennepin County friends, you just go out to Google and type in Hennepin County property tax lookup. It's likely going to be the link here right at the very top of the page, the official Hennepin County tax page. Sounds exciting. Enter your property address, as you'll see the space to do that, and you're going to scroll down, and now we're looking for two numbers. We are looking for the total tax you pay each year and your taxable value. Make sure that you get your taxable value. Okay, so your total tax divided by your taxable value equals your effective tax rate. So let's just say you paid $6,000 in tax. Your taxable value is $450,000. Your effective tax rate in that scenario would be about 1.33%. That number tells you far more about your situation than any headline about a levy increase. So with that out of the way, we're going to get more into the questions I think you guys are really wondering about. Especially if you're local, you've probably got a few things stuck in your brain, or maybe some questions. Questions like, in 2022, we had a $9.25 billion state surplus. Where'd that money go? Here's the big takeaway. Most of that surplus was committed to recurring spending, and there's no nice way to say this. The crappy downside of that now means the state now has higher ongoing financial obligations going forward. If that's not government at its best, I don't know what is. So the legislature used a huge portion of that surplus, like we said, for ongoing expenditures across state agencies. A significant chunk went towards education funding increases. Minnesota passed new child care tax credits, extended family benefits, housing programs, back to that Minnesota social safety net. Whether you like it or not, it's here and it's strong and it's expensive. Billions went to one-time infrastructure payments, including transit, roads, broadband, capital improvements, and in true government fashion, a very teeny portion was returned to taxpayers. But again, the big downside of that, at least in my opinion, was they used that surplus to raise up the floor for spending. So I'm trying to not say what the surplus really gave us was an increased bottom line over time, but it kind of feels that way. We're going to answer or talk about the question most of you are probably wondering, and that is, why the hell are you doing this to me, Hennepin County? Let's try and talk about it. So in 2020, Minneapolis had the George Floyd event, and my out-of-state friends, I would love to hear from you in the comments what you heard, if you're not from Minnesota, about that event, because we all know it made a lot of national and international news even. But as a result of the George Floyd event, Minneapolis and surrounding cities have experienced dramatic rise in costs in areas like higher policing costs, rebuilding staffing, recruiting, incentives, overtime, huge. Increased security needs downtown, higher insurance premiums because of all that civil unrest and significant property damage that occurred during that event, increased spending on things like mental health, and growing public safety mandates from the state. Even outside of Minneapolis, cities like Edina, St. Louis Park are all reporting that public safety inflation as a major budgetary driver and pressure. So this is one of the top reasons levies have risen faster in the past 3 to 4 years, is a direct follow-up from the George Floyd event. Number two, and this is intimately linked to point number one, and that's going to be the collapse in commercial property values. And the thing you just really need to understand here, a collapse in commercial property values doesn't suddenly mean the county doesn't need your money. What it does is it shifts that burden, the lost value from those commercial properties, and it shifts it over onto the homeowner. So now us homeowners, yay, are left picking up a bigger slice of that pie. George Floyd significantly relevant to that. We also had this other thing in 2020. Minneapolis got a double whammy. We had George Floyd and then we got COVID. So COVID obviously also had a very big impact on the whole work from home thing, and that's obviously not unique to Minneapolis. Retail and hospitality corridors lost value. True. COVID affected that. George Floyd also affected that big time. Many buildings appealed and won their valuations. We had a few buildings sell at record low prices. Large employers gutted their footprint, and high vacancy rates just flat out reduced taxable values. And like I said, when commercial values fall, that their share of the tax burden shrinks, and that gets shifted back over to homeowners, so we're left picking up the pieces. Points 1 and 2 are the big drivers here. Point number 3, and this is going to be more common around the nation, inflation and labor costs, frankly, are outpacing revenue. Cities, schools, counties are dealing with costs that are going at a rate far above inflation. That's things like teacher contracts, police and firefighter unions, healthcare premiums, pension contributions, construction costs, energy, technology, grade, costs of living, all these fun things. Cities cannot cut core services like police, EMS, roads. You can't cut snow plowing if you live in Minnesota, and schools. Point number 4, this one is certainly a thing for Minneapolis, and that's going to be aging infrastructure and deferred maintenance. Many Hennepin County communities are dealing with that, I can tell you. We're dealing with things like older sewer and water infrastructure, resurfacing roads. There's a lot of jokes about Minnesota and our potholes. I personally have flattened a few tires on them. Stormwater upgrades, bridges, school renovations, facility renovations, and you will see these largely in places like Minneapolis for sure, Hopkins, Bloomington, Edina, Minnetonka, Robbinsdale, just to name a few. So when major infrastructure hits end of life simultaneously, guess what? Levies go up and taxes right there with it. Number 5, things driving your taxes. That's going to be school levies. Key pressures here, skyrocketing special education costs. Combine that with federal cuts and or underfunding. The state is picking up the slack. A little national context and a little bit more broadly speaking as far as Minnesota on the tax front, as long as we're on this subject. Minnesota is income tax high. We're routinely in the top 5 to 7 highest income tax states in the country. Not as high as places like New York and California, but higher definitely than the majority of the country. So Minnesota here, we're already starting with a higher than average tax baseline. Our sales tax, pretty much middle of the pack. Statewide rate is going to be about 6.85%. Local rates, most shoppers are actually paying a rate closer to 7.25 to 8.2%. So comparison, Tennessee and Louisiana, you guys are above 9%. Washington is near 10%. Minnesota is pretty much right in the middle. So income tax high, sales tax average, property taxes definitely higher, especially in the metropolitan area. That's going to be Minneapolis, Hennepin County. As you get more out into rural Minnesota, you will find property taxes are a bit lower. So when you combine all of that, you are definitely end up with a state that definitely relies heavily on tax revenue, and that shapes what we're going to see going forward. Trying to forecast where we're going is of course impossible, but it draws eyeballs, so let's talk about it for 2 minutes. And property taxes in Hennepin County, Minneapolis, like just about everywhere else, are going to rise. They are predicted to rise. I think what we will see is they will rise at a more controlled pace than these big eye-popping headline jumps, but more like 3 to 6% for most cities. Like everywhere, Hennepin County, Minneapolis is facing inflation issues. So what happens there nationally? We're all watching what happens with inflation. More unique to Minneapolis and things that I feel positive about personally as somebody who lives here. Minneapolis, Hennepin County continues to move on from 2020 and the challenges of both COVID, which everybody got, but also for us here was George Floyd. And we talked about the effect that had on the commercial tax base here in Minneapolis and a lot of Hennepin County. So as those businesses come back, that should also remove some of that burden off of the homeowners here in Minneapolis and Hennepin County and shift that burden back onto the businesses. And just, I feel like I gotta mention it here because we have talked about, I feel like this video sounds a lot like Minnesota and its high taxes. And yes, like we talked about, Minnesota's not gonna be one of your lowest tax states. You get a lot of really good things with it, right? You get one of the top tier school system, one of the best park systems in America. You get clean air and water, which, I mean, doesn't sound sexy until you need it. National leading healthcare, we've got Mayo here, great bikes, trail system, public library, civic engagement, the list goes on and on. So there's definitely benefits that come with it. You know, so just some final thoughts here on this video and this topic. You know, number one, Minnesota's dealing with a lot of the same issues other states and frankly individuals are. Inflation, life is just getting more expensive, and of course that's going to show up in budgets and property taxes. Minnesota does have its own unique challenge recovering from the George Floyd event of 2020. As I talked about in the video, especially that commercial tax base recovering, that is a bit more of a uniquely Minnesota problem. But I do think if you live here and you look at the numbers, I think most of us living here feel pretty confident that we are going to come back from that. If you guys like the video, and I really hope this sheds some light on how we get property taxes, how you can calculate your own. If you found the video helpful, if you liked it, please give us a like. It really helps us. My name is Chris. Contact information is all right here. If you've got any questions on things like exciting property taxes or anything else, would love to hear from you guys. Thanks for watching. We'll see you guys again real soon.